Hey everybody, it's Thursday, February 26th, 2026. Welcome to the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast, where we believe in vitamin C. It's me, your man, MG Marcas Grant, joined by Michael F. Florio, Laquan Jones, DNP, illness. Rest up, man.
Player's decision.
Right, exactly. He sent us a little text this morning, said he is not feeling great, so we told him to ice up, son, get better, and hopefully he'll be back for next week. That, Florio, is the other side of having kids, because they are germ incubators and they hang out in spaces like schools or daycares with other germ incubators. So like I remember when we first sent our son to daycare, it was almost every 2 weeks he was coming home with some new sniffle or virus or cold, which would inevitably cycle through the house. So, if you decide to walk that path, just know that that's what's coming for you.
I will say every time I go hang out with my niece and nephews back home and stuff, I usually get sick. And then me and Kyrie were talking before the show. Laquan did like a quick New Orleans trip. I do a bunch of very quick trips because like fly back home for weddings or whatever. I get sick every time I do it. So like it was coming for him whether he liked it or not. It was just a matter of when, not if.
Between kids and airplanes, it was bound to take him down. So, rest up, man. Drink plenty of fluids, get some vitamin C, and rest up. And I will talk to you next week. In the meantime, for us, the two of us still here. We're still going through our team needs as free agency hits in about a week and a half. There's definitely some news, some of the non-free agent variety. Also, the Combine is coming up this week. I actually didn't put any Combine stuff in the rundown. I don't know if you want to. Okay, good. I was gonna say, I didn't know if you wanted to chat about it, but I could make it an exception. But the Combine's happening this week in Indianapolis. I
like that more and more stuff is being like certain teams aren't even going to this like. It's more now kind of like for the media and the front offices and stuff to kind of it's kind of like the winter meetings is how I view the Combine now. And it's the winter meetings, just occasionally someone who hopes to get drafted shows us that they're very fast or something like that.
I mean, I think some of it is now we have guys who train specifically for the Combine. And the more you do that, the more you start to realize that the drills that they do there don't necessarily translate to on-field performance. I mean, if you have guys who are spending their time training, for instance, for the 40, those sorts of things, it's kind of become overblown, I think, in a lot of regards. We always have the Combine hype bunnies who move up the board and don't necessarily perform once they get to the NFL. I think even the interview portion of it has become a little bit much, with teams trying to find the weirdest, most esoteric questions to ask.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever been asked in a job interview? Can you think of that?
Weirdest?
Yeah.
The first thing that comes to mind, it's a terrible story in my mind.
They usually are.
I went, I had a first interview. It was for to run the sports department of like a local newspaper where I'm from. Mm-hmm. And they were like, I had a really long beard. Like I randomly post college was like, I'm going to grow my beard out. And it was like 8 months of just not shaving.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, we don't really love the beard. So for the second interview, I shaved and I went in like clean, like kind of how it is now. And then they were like, you got the gig, but instead of it being full time, we're going to make it freelance per store. And I was like, I shaved for the same position I already have? Like, what are we doing?
Wow. Yeah, that's terrible. I once had a job I interviewed. I was going to be the sports editor for kind of a similar to what you're doing, like kind of a local news and information website, right? It was a kind of a startup website. And the guy who was my boss, or my big boss, he was above my boss, actually interviewed me and was kind of just a strange dude. And I'll never forget, he asked me, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? Yeah, I mean, the look on your face right now was sort of I think the look, I hope I didn't show it, but that's definitely the look I had inside. And I think I made up something like, I was like, I think I said like a palm tree or something, because like I can be strong, but also can be flexible and move with the wind, or I don't know. But the whole thing caught me off guard. I'm like, what does this have to do with the
That is a fantastic answer, though. My first thought was pine because I like Christmas. Like it, like that's a really good answer.
I think oak came into my head at some point. But I really was just like taken aback by the whole thing. Like I have no idea what that meant.
You're printing on trees. That's the only thing a tree kind of comes into this equation.
And we were an internet company, so we weren't even doing that. So I have no idea. I have no idea where that man is nowadays. I don't know that I particularly care. Anyway, we're talking AFC North teams today as we talk some free agent fits, so we'll get through the AFC and the NFC North as we do this. But let's start with a couple of news headlines, because in Denver, Sean Payton says he is handing over play calling duties to new offensive coordinator Davis Webb. My first thought is there hope for RJ Harvey, but like, Florio, we don't really know what this means because we have no idea what first-time OC Davis Webb is going to be like as a play caller. So, I mean, any immediate takeaways when you hear or read this?
My immediate takeaway, besides what you just said of like, we don't really know what this, and I spoke about this not with Davis Webb, but just like to me, the hardest situations to figure out in this is first-time play callers, because especially when like there's no college or anything like that to kind of fall back on. My first thinking though was like, I don't really expect this to look all that much different, because Davis Webb has been a part of Sean Payton's staff the last couple of years. He quickly gained a lot of notoriety this coaching cycle and was getting head coaching interviews, even though he wasn't even the OC last year. Then they fired Lombardi and gave him play calling duties to keep him in Denver. To me, I think it just shows how much confidence Sean Payton has in him. I still expect a heavy Sean Payton influence, which means a lot of screen passes, a lot of slants, stuff like that. So I don't expect it to look all that different, but maybe Davis Webb puts his own little twist on it. Maybe we get a little bit more aggressive throwing downfield or whatever. I think when it comes to RJ Harvey, though, he, more than anything, more than play calling, I think needs to survive the draft and free agency. Because if they bring in someone like last year where they brought in J.K. Dobbins, that could be a wet blanket. Like, I think Harvey's clearly going to have a role, Marcas. Like, I don't expect him to completely get usurped or something like that. But it's just a matter of how much percentage of the volume can we expect for him. And if he's the clear one, obviously you feel a lot better than if they use a high pick or a good amount of money on a running back. So with Harvey, the personnel around him to me matters a whole lot more than this change at play caller.
I mean, I do think even if he survives free agency and the draft and they don't really bring in another real candidate to challenge him, I think what we saw from him late in the season and in the playoffs especially is that I don't know that he's built to be a workhorse. We saw Jaleel McLaughlin get carries. And look, nobody was effective running the ball against the Patriots. The Broncos could not run the ball. I think some of it was because, look, the Patriots didn't respect Jarrett Stidham for good reason. But, Harvey was not the guy when they were trying to just run him between the tackles. He could not get anything going, couldn't gain any traction. We saw them using Jaleel McLaughlin a few times. I mean, that didn't really work out. I think in a perfect world, it would have been J.K. Dobbins maybe taking a few more of those carries. And so I wonder whether or not the physical limitations, unless he gets bigger and stronger, spends a lot of time in the weight room this offseason to become a stronger between the tackles runner, if that sort of limits what they can do with him play calling wise. But part of me wants to see if Davis Webb wants to, kick the tires on that, see what they got in a guy who can be explosive, can be a big play guy. I was definitely hoping, LQ was going to be here because, I wanted to hear his thoughts, knowing how much he loves RJ Harvey. But I'm just, I don't know. I'd like to see more. I'd like to see, maybe we get Marvin Mims more involved, or, Troy Franklin, or, Pat Bryant, somebody. But I think you're right. I think being under Sean Payton's wing for so long, means that he's going to kind of be the same as it ever was.
I also like RJ Harvey might have to survive this summer too, right? Because he survived the draft and free agency last year, and then it was like a random day in June where J.K. Dobbins signed.
Yeah, that's true.
And I remember it vividly. Like I was at I was playing basketball and I looked at my phone and I was like, this isn't great for RJ Harvey. And then all of the takes from fantasy Twitter were like, if J.K. Dobbins was good, he would have signed way. And then look how it played out. So like maybe we got to wait all the way until July or something like that for RJ.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point too. As we hit free agency, I think when you talk about running backs, I don't know that the whole he didn't sign right away thing necessarily is impactful anymore. I think once upon a time, yeah, if you didn't sign in the first few days, chances are people didn't really have a plan for you. But I think with the way teams sort of view the running back position now, I think you can have a guy who signs later in the offseason and still come in depending on the situation and have a role. And I think that's what happened with J.K. Dobbins this past year. Over to Indianapolis. Speaking of the Combine, that is where that's going to be held, but this is not Combine news. Yesterday, when I was putting this rundown together, saw a story that said Chris Ballard can still see a future with Anthony Richardson on the Colts. And then plot twist, this morning, before we started doing the show, Anthony Richardson has requested a trade, and it appears that the Colts are going to honor that request and let him move on. Also something that I saw just a few minutes ago as we were talking, a report that Richardson has regained full vision in his right eye. So after that sort of fluke injury last year with the resistance band where he was hit in the face, it appears that he has made a full recovery. So that is certainly positive news. But I mean, at this point, he's been 3 years in the NFL, has he even played a full season's worth of games? I don't believe so. What is the ceiling for him now? I mean, my thought in my head is like, he's sort of Trey Lance all over again, right? But Trey Lance has even played more games. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't know if he had, but it feels like they're sort of on a similar track right now.
I don't disagree. But I'm going to champion for my boy here. I'm a Anthony Richardson stan because twofold. One, when he was drafted, the knock on him was he did not have a lot of experience in college, right? He just had that 1 year where he was the starter. I think he threw less than 400 passes in college. I could actually pull that up and tell you exactly how many he threw, but it's not that far off from where he's at the NFL 3 years in. So in college, he threw 393 pass attempts. In the NFL, he has thrown 350, right? Like, this is just a guy who needs more seasoning. It always has. The thing for me, though, is he's still just 23 years old. He will be 24 next year. That's younger than Michael Penix Jr. and Bo Nix and these guys, right? Like, he's still, I know he was drafted a year before those guys. He's still younger. And I go back to some of the things we've seen him do on the football field, right? Like some of his running plays where it's just like, oh my God, he's like Cam Newton, but faster. Or that, I forget, I think it was against the Titans, but that one throw he made where he had a defender in his face and he just like airmails it like 60 yards. One of the best throws I've ever seen. And all the physical tools are there. I understand that he's very raw when it comes to breaking down defenses and stuff like that. You know who else was? Malik Willis, the number one rated quarterback, number one rated free agent by Greg Rosenthal right now. So I think Anthony Richardson, yes, he needs to go to a place where he has a coach that could kind of coach him up. Maybe I want him to get reps, but I don't know. Maybe they view a Malik Willis path, but Malik Willis and Kyler Murray, I will admit, you could make an argument that they have higher upside or maybe a combination of floor and upside. After that, there is not a quarterback available, in my opinion, that sniffs the upside of an Anthony Richardson. Maybe there's safer options. There definitely are. But if you're like I don't wish this on him. I hope he goes somewhere better. But if you're like the Jets, right?
that's the one name that keeps popping up, right?
Why not? Right? Like, you're already hoping to have a high pick next year. Anthony Richardson could either be terrible and help you get that number one pick, or he can hit and you suddenly don't have to draft a quarterback because you have a very young one now with a clear-cut future. So if you're them or the Dolphins or any of these QB needy teams that miss out on Willis, I think Anthony Richardson is a fantastic pivot.
I mean, to me, that's sort of the issue is where can he go knowing he needs reps, knowing he's got to get on the field and play? Where can he go where he can get those opportunities? And yeah, the options are sort of bleak. It's the Jets. Maybe it's the Dolphins if they feel, adventurous like that. They're obviously moving on from Tua. And I don't think they're nowhere close to really being competitive. Like that 7 wins last year was sort of a mirage. I said last show, I think they could be the worst team in the NFL. So maybe you try it with Anthony Richardson and see what happens. The Cardinals maybe are another option depending on what they want to do at quarterback, unless they decide they're just going to hand it over to Jacoby Brissett for a full year. But I don't really see that happening. But like all the other places where he could go and get reps, or the other bad teams, I should say, they all have options, right? I mean, the Browns, we'll talk about the Browns in a little bit, but the Browns have...
A Richardson-Shador camp battle would break the internet, at least fantasy Twitter.
But like, not in a good way. Like, just from a comedy standpoint, I think it probably would. But the Browns they're kind of overloaded with bodies, at least. I don't know if they have a guy. The Titans have their guy for the time being. The Raiders probably going to draft Fernando Mendoza, so he's not really going to get a shot there. The Saints, they've got their guy that they want to try to develop right now in Tyler Shuck. So really, I feel like the Jets, the Dolphins, and maybe the Cardinals, kind of the only real landing spots if he wants to get on the field.
I keep operating as if Malik Willis is already a Cardinal. I just feel like that's where he's going to end up.
That's happening.
The Browns were one, though, that I thought Richardson, because look, I know they have a lot of bodies, but no one stands out there. Here's a wacky scenario I just thought of right now as we're discussing this. Why don't we get headache for headache, first round pick that didn't work out for first round pick that didn't work out? How about Anthony Richardson for JJ McCarthy, right? Steichen, you get your chance with JJ now. We see if KOC can get the most out of Anthony Richardson, and we just go from there.
If I'm a Viking fan, I am burning everything down if that's what happens. I'd
rather Anthony Richardson personally. He's got the skill set at least.
He does have the skill set. Yeah, we're gonna talk about the Vikings too, since it just sort of worked out. There were AFC North and NFC North quarterback stories that popped up on my radar in the last couple of days. I was like, oh, so perfect that we're talking this division today. So, yeah, we can revisit this a little bit later on in the show. All right, talking some free agency and looking at the AFC North in reverse order of finish. You got the Browns, Bengals, Ravens, Steelers. One thing I noticed so far going through these is kind of looking at team needs. A lot of teams need wide receivers, which is wild considering the amount of guys who've come out of that position who've been successful and the amount of players just floating around the league at that position. But it still seems to be a need across the NFL. The Browns could use a wide receiver. I think they could use a quarterback. I was sort of looking at places and nobody listed quarterback. I think the Browns need a quarterback. And to wit, a story recently on NFL.com saying Browns general manager Andrew Berry leaves the door open for Deshaun Watson to compete for a starting job. And I'm going to ask you, Michael F. Florio, why don't I believe that is true?
Because you have eyes and you pay close attention to the NFL and you've watched Deshaun Watson ever since he's returned but I will say this though, right? Well, the reason why they're not ruling him out is because his base salary this year is $46 million and his cap hit is almost $81 million. Like, yeah, they have incentive to not completely write him off, but he was kind of vocal in a way that he's allowed to be vocal. Like he wasn't saying like, oh, it's all Stefanski's fault, but he was throwing a lot of breadcrumbs and pointing kind of fingers and saying like no one would succeed in this offense and stuff like that. Like look at, I think at one point too, he even referenced Baker Mayfield. And so maybe the Browns are like, well, with Todd Monken here, he could get the most out of Deshaun Watson. But Todd Monken, when he got there, was most excited about Shedeur Sanders. So I don't envision a world where we see Deshaun Watson playing unless like maybe Sanders gets hurt or something like that. But week 1, everyone's healthy. I don't think Watson is the starting quarter. And if he is, and he looks how he has looked, I'm sorry, Browns fans, you're going to be in the exact same position a year from now.
Deshaun Watson has played a total of 19 games since 2020. That's it.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, just, he's been obviously hurt a lot. When he has played, he has not looked good. I mean, that 2020 season, when he threw for 4,800 yards, that is such a distant memory now.
He was so just fun to watch. Not forget like good. I never saw that. Like he never moved like he did pre-suspension ever again. And now he's coming off of an Achilles.
Yeah. I just, I think you're right. I think we've got a lot invested in him financially, so we can't just say there's no chance of him playing, but I feel like there's really no chance of him playing because what do you have to gain by starting him if you're the Browns? I mean, right, because he's at the age, he will be 30 this year. In fact, he's 30 right now, I should say, because he didn't play all of last year. Last time he played his age 29 season. He's 30 years old, so he's not a developmental guy. After a year off, you've got to wait for him to sort of get back into game speed, and who knows how long that's going to take. You're not really expected to compete, so there's really no upside to playing Deshaun Watson unless you absolutely have to. So I guess you're just sort of paying lip service to this, if anything.
And remember how bad Rodgers and Cousins were first year back from an Achilles?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, I just saw it. I was just like, yeah, this feels like a GM sort of paying lip service to a thing that he has to, but with no real, no real meaning behind it. Also, I think it's interesting, him, Barry leaving breadcrumbs because the person he should be leaving breadcrumbs for is the owner who went out and signed Deshaun Watson to this hideous contract that now has them buried under an avalanche right now in terms of the salary cap. And the Browns are $6.5 million over the cap at the moment.
One more year, they could get out of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, but it sort of hampers any sort of development. I mean, does that mean they're out in the free agent market? Is it just like we're trying to build through the draft for the time being? Is that it?
I think they'll maneuver some cap around, and I don't think we're going to get like a huge splash out of them. It's really hard, especially, look, I know top quarterbacks get paid and you hear stuff like, oh, it's hard to build. No, when you have a top quarterback and they're worth the money you pay them, it is the best thing you could have in the NFL. But when you're paying someone, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes type money, and they're one of the worst, maybe the worst starter in the NFL, and then you're paying Cavs owner. I didn't realize he was the Cavs owner until the other day. Myles Garrett, an all-time record contract. Like, yeah, you got so much cap tied up in a couple of spots that it makes it really hard to build out the rest. So I do think we'll see some like minor moves from the Browns. And then I think the draft is largely where we're going to see them bring in their new players for this season. But I have a feeling, right, like for Todd Monken or whatever, they probably were like, look, 2026 is going to be what it is. We have to get out from under this Watson contract, and then we can kind of think about rebuilding for the future. So it's probably more about getting in guys that Monken thinks he can develop long term, right? I mean, the Browns have been like the Jim Schwartz thing. Like it's just they cannot get out of their own way.
I mean, bad teams stay bad for a reason. And the Browns have plenty of reasons why they have stayed bad for a long time. But also we should stop giving them high draft picks because they keep squandering them. So that's just me. Bengals mostly need things on the defensive side of the football. They are set offensively. They've got their quarterback, they've got their wide receivers, they've got a good running back in Chase Brown. I guess they could go look for a tight end if they wanted to. It feels like that's, at least in terms of offensive skill positions, is maybe the only thing. But again, I don't know, Florio, what tight end can break through that Chase Higgins duo to get significant targets at any point.
The crazy thing too is they paid Mike Gesicki last season. Like he cap hit wise is in their top 10. Like it doesn't make sense to, even when they did it, right? I was like, you have T and Chase and you're paying Burrow. You don't need to invest in especially Mike Gesicki, But yeah, I think it's O-line and defense. Like if you spend on skill positions or anything like that, it's like, what are you doing here? Because you have maybe the best 1-2 punch in the NFL. If not the best, it's what? Well, the Cowboys will probably have surpassed them, but one of the best, Right. So like you're loaded on offense. And you got to replace, like your defense was awful and you had Trey Hendrickson passing. Like now you got to replace your best player on defense as well. So yeah, I think that's got to be the focal point, defense and O-line.
Yeah, you talk about duos, wide receiver duos, in no particular order. The Bengals, the Cowboys, the Rams. I'm saying this because one of us isn't here today. Those are.
I would still put them up there.
Yeah,
the Bills.
Yeah. Side note: there's been a lot of AJ Brown chatter this week. He's not leaving Philly, right? They're not gonna trade him. They're not gonna let him go. He's staying with the Eagles.
I think in an ideal world, he would be gone because he wants out. And I think they're kind of getting a little tired of his shenanigans. But the dead cap would be $72 million if they traded him this year. They have an out after this season. So I think we get one more year of AJ.
Yeah, I feel like that's a thing that it's good to talk about. It's content filler here in late February, but I just don't think it has any real merit to it. The Ravens could use some help at wide receiver. I feel like the Ravens probably should go big. They have decent cap space, $22.5 million that they can spend. At some point, they really have to commit to helping Lamar Jackson with some of his weapons there, right? Again, Zay Flowers, nice piece, not necessarily a game changer. Whether or not they get him, like it feels like, hey man, maybe we go hard after a Mike Evans or somebody. Like that would be kind of a cool piece to add to that Ravens offense. I don't know, but like at some point they've got to really just try to push their chips in on a wideout.
Yeah, I agree. Like I know they paid Rashad Bateman. They still have Zay Flowers on his rookie deal. They tried it with like D-Hop and stuff like that. But my concern is they just brought, I know Monken is gone. The offense is going to look different. So they're going to address that side of the ball as well. But with the big overhaul coming on the defensive side of the ball, that's my fear look, if I'm a Ravens fan, I'm like, I trust Lamar in that offense. I want the defense to get better. But as a fantasy player, that's my fear, is that the bulk of their money gets invested in the defensive side of things.
Yeah, that's probably, yes, again, it's probably a smart way to build the roster, but that's not what we're here for. But especially if you've got folks in the building, you've got the offensive coordinator saying that there's another level that Lamar Jackson can rise to. Well, maybe, but some of that means the cast around him has to kind of help him rise to that level. He can be a willing passer, but at some point, like the guys have to catch the ball and do something with it afterwards. So, again, yeah, they're probably not gonna go and splurge on a Mike Evans. It would be nice, but yeah,
I don't know why Keenan Allen's name. I think he retires, but I'm like,
I do too.
The retirement home path, like they'll sign another older big name wide receiver and call it a day.
Yeah, Keenan Allen in Baltimore would. It just look weird. Like I'm trying to envision it in my head, and it just looks weird seeing him.
That Keenan Allen Bears year, we're gonna look back and be like, "What?"
Yeah, it'd be really well. Yeah, exactly. Then we got the Steelers, who have again they got a lot of money to spend, $44.7 million. They're another team that absolutely needs some wide receiver help. even if GMFB's Isaac Rochelle has DK Metcalf as a top 5 wideout in the NFL. Feel like that's probably not enough. I think they also need quarterback help. Is Aaron Rodgers coming back? Are we going to have another year of this again?
My thinking is yes. They've already said, right, like we're not going to allow him to do it like last year because it was in like June that he signed. Like they need to know sooner than later. And I do believe that part of it, right? Like I think they're telling Rodgers, we will have you back if you want to be back. But if you don't, we need to know so that we can move forward with free agency in the draft, knowing what we need. I also think it could be like last year in the sense of he didn't sign till June, but every move that happened indicate like they didn't sign anyone. They didn't draft a quarterback till Will Howard in like the 6th round, I think it was, or 7th round. So yeah, it was like, all right, we could read the tea leaves here that Aaron Rodgers is going to be the guy. But the way they've just been talking about it, like McCarthy being open to having him back, the Steelers publicly putting out that like we would welcome Rodgers back if he wanted to. And the way that Rodgers spoke this year at the end of the year, like it was the most fun he's had in a while. And he felt like one of the guys again. And rightfully so, because the Steelers roster are like old. So they get along with Aaron Rodgers quite well. But yeah, I do think, though, if you're Pittsburgh, he cannot be your only plan at quarterback, right? I know you have Will Howard there, but whether it's using like a 2nd or 3rd round pick on a developmental guy, or maybe you bring in a Kyler, I think Kyler would play over Rodgers.
Yeah,
but like an Anthony Richardson, something like
Richardson
that.
Seems like a fit there potentially, right?
Yeah, to like sit behind him. Like I think you have to do something else, but I kind of think we haven't. If we had seen Rodgers, to me kind of feels like if we had seen the last of him, he would have wanted us to know that was the last of him, you know?
Yeah, I really do think if his last throw wasn't a pick 6, where on top of that he got trucked by the ball carrier, if it was nearly any other way that the season ended, maybe he feels better about walking away. But there's no way that Aaron Rodgers' ego will let that be the last thing we remember of him in the NFL.
Like if he beats the Ravens and then like that first play against Houston, he gets hurt and he's done for. Like maybe that's the last we see him because he walked off the field against Baltimore, you know, winning a playoff game kind of. Although speaking of that, did you see that the league this week came out and said Isaiah Likely's catch that would have been the game-winning catch in their first matchup should have been a touchdown? And Lamar was like, wait, so we won that game? And they would have won the division and made the playoffs had that call been called right. Like, huge missed call. But if you're the Steelers, you don't care. But
no. Is it better or worse when leagues do that?
Worse.
I think it's worse, right? I would almost rather you just shut up about it. Like, don't tell me. Don't tell me. Like, because you're not going to award me anything. You're just going to, pat me on the back and be like, hey, sorry, champ, screwed up. Like I know like the NBA does that last 2 minutes report where they talk about all the calls and, what they got right, what they got wrong, whatever. But because you're not going to actually change anything, like just keep it to yourself. It doesn't make sense to me.
When the Knicks played the Sixers in the playoffs a couple years ago, there was a 2-minute report that said they got something wrong that would have greatly switched one game maybe in the favor of the Sixers. And then like 2 days later, it happened against the Knicks and the fan bases were like, we both lost the game to who cares, right? Like that doesn't make me feel any better. If anything, it makes me feel more angry if my team is on the wrong side of a call and the league is like, you guys shouldn't have lost that game. Like, no, like fight me then. Like, like give us a chance to win it,
Yeah, I always laugh whenever something happens in baseball and they're like, the manager's like, we're playing this game under protest. And it doesn't change anything. And I just imagine basically it just means that the manager's going to sit on the dugout steps with like his arms folded and his bottom lip poked out like a toddler or something. Like, man, don't tell me if
pull
you
the Bobby
up.
Valentine and come back with fake glasses.
The glasses and the fake mustache.
Best thing a manager has ever done, and I don't think it'll be topped.
Oh man, yeah. Talking free agency, looking at the NFC North, and in reverse order of finish, we got the Lions, Vikings, Packers, and Bears. I went and looked at this, and I was like, wow, the Lions really did finish last, technically, in the NFC North. They were 9-8, just because that division was super competitive, and all those teams were really bunched together. But you know,
the Vikings finishing over 500 is something I will never give credit. Like, they were so bad and then they won their final 4 games, and maybe they deserve credit for that. But like, you were eliminated already. Like, in my head, the Vikings finish in last place.
All right, sure, but either way, they're 9-8. The Lions, I think most of their issues are on the defensive side of the ball. Again, they've got a quarterback in Jared Goff. Okay, yeah, he's not elite, but he's definitely an above average quarterback. I think they're fine there. Obviously, they've got a top-notch running back in Jahmyr Gibbs. Sort of curious what the future is going to be for David Montgomery, with this ball club. Since he was obviously de-emphasized in the offense last year. They've got quality wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, even Isaac Tesla. They are set offensively. They just got to fix things on the defensive side of the ball. So they're also $9 million over the cap. So I feel like, spending on skill position guys in free agency, probably a luxury that...
The one... Because like you said, their whole O-line, all their starters on offense are coming back. Their defense is filled with free agents. But the one offensive question is David Montgomery, because there was some smoke this week from the Combine that he could be kind of wanting a new home because of how they leaned on Gibbs more and more down the stretch. And also he's about $9 million that he's going to cost this year. So that could be a way to free up some money. I want it to happen only because I think Bijan and Gibbs are going to be tied for their whole career. And if we could get a whole summer where Tyler Algier and David Montgomery are now removed from the equation and we get to just argue Bijan versus Gibbs, that to me is going to be a ton of fun. So that's selfishly what I'm rooting for.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. I like it when we have years where we can sort of debate who is the number one pick. Because, it feels like there have been more often than not over the last few years, there's just been the consensus number one. And then, I don't know, it's just not fun to argue. Because then you get people who are kind of galaxy braining the whole thing about who should be a number one pick. And that's equally not fun when you're just making up reasons.
I'm seeing it now, right? One of us champion for Bijan, the other for Gibbs, and then there's LQ being like, it should be Puka.
It's Puka. Right. So we already know where he has planted his flag. So now it's just up to you and I to, kind of figure out the rest of it. So that's it. That gets us to the Vikings, which headline this week, the Vikings will, quote, explore every opportunity at quarterback this offseason with J.J. McCarthy still in the mix. I read that and I think they are done with J.J. McCarthy. If they are here a couple years into it and they're saying they're exploring every option at quarterback, I don't know, Mike. That seems to me that the Vikings are like, okay, this is just not working. This guy's not who we thought who was. He's not working out. We got to figure out a contingency plan.
And if you read the tea leaves up until this point, it very much indicates that they're done, right? Like KOC, we have found out, did not want to draft J.J. McCarthy. He did not want to start J.J. McCarthy. It was the then GM at the time who got fired, I would argue, because of J.J. McCarthy. Yeah. Which shout out to the 49ers, by the way, because anytime someone leaves and they go and they get fired, the Niners are like, welcome back, buddy.
Come home. Come on home.
Yeah. It must be such a good feeling knowing like, well, if I strike out on my own, Kyle's going to welcome me back with open arms. But yeah. And then on top of all of that, right, Jefferson's comments of being like, if I had a better quarterback, I would put up better numbers, stuff like that. Like they kind of threw him right under the bus and then reversed it back. So like, I would be very surprised. I wouldn't be shocked if they go into next year with a camp battle for JJ, but I think if they could get a Kyler Murray, they're going to strike on that or someone where they know, okay, it's not even a battle. Like we're starting this guy over JJ, but I'm going to say it again. JJ for Richardson, right? Like JJ just feels like more of a Daniel Jones backup than Anthony Richardson does. And then Richardson gets a chance in a place that's helped develop a lot of young quarterbacks.
LQ is going to be upset that you're pushing his guy Riley Leonard out of the equation here because
he loves Riley Leonard.
He loves Riley Leonard. I don't necessarily understand it, but yeah, he's a big Riley Leonard guy. I'm not seeing it.
Look, Riley could beat out JJ potentially to be the number 2.
I mean, could be, sure. The other part of this for the Vikings, they're $42 million over the cap. In fact, every team in the NFC North right now is over the cap to varying degrees. $42 million makes it really hard to do things in free agency. So I do think if they're really looking to explore the quarterback situation, it is likely a trade. But it also involves, restructuring, letting guys go. So like, I think they would love to be in on a guy like Kyler Murray, seeing what they could do with Kyler.
The only way I think it works is if Kyler does a Russ, right? Where he's like, the Cardinals are already paying me a bunch of money. I'll sign for the minimum here.
Yeah. I mean, that could possibly work. I think for sure. But otherwise, if he's just looking to still get paid, then that probably doesn't work there.
I don't know if you just saw the text that just came in.
No.
Laquan texted us. It's like he's watching. He said, "Sucks I'm missing Florio's excitement for Anthony Richardson possibly on the move."
Now I'm checking the StreamYard. No, he's not here unless he's masquerading as Kyrie. That's wild. That is wild that he pops in. So Laquan actually is on the show today in his own special way. The other thing the Vikings really need, though, they do need a running back. That feels like one that, they could possibly address that without breaking the bank necessarily. I don't think they chase a Travis Etienne. Would you try to make it work with like Najee Harris? Because the number that Najee is going to sign for is going to be less than what he got last year. Do you pursue a J.K. Dobbins? Kenneth Gainwell, maybe? But I think there are ways to sort of address that need and do it in a pretty economical way.
This is for the Vikings, right?
Yeah, for the Vikings, yeah.
Because I think it's a very good chance that they move on from Aaron Jones this offseason.
I think so, too.
He's so expensive. But you mentioned Kenneth Gainwell. That was going to be the name I threw out there because I think Jordan Mason, and look, I'm not going to say I'm the highest guy on him here because we all know that.
we all know who that is, right?
But Jordan Mason is a very good runner. I don't think he is a great dual threat back, but just as a pure like first and second down, short yard stuff, I think Jordan Mason could get you covered there. And then I think Kenneth Gainwell, who isn't necessarily the best runner, is a fantastic weapon in the passing game. So you kind of splice it together with those two. I think you could have a very productive backfield without having to invest a whole lot of money. Like, look, it's not my dream backfield,
right?
But in this situation, it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably fair because I don't think they give up fully on Jordan Mason, but I do think they learned that he's not the guy that's going to carry the offense. He can be good in spurts, but he also kind of has a limited ceiling for them. So I think finding a complement to him is probably the best thing that you can do. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings even wait a while. You talk about them signing the Broncos signing J.K. Dobbins later in the offseason. If I'm the Vikings, I wait, right? Maybe I look and see who's available in free agency. I go through the draft. I see who maybe we can get there. And then if we don't get a guy we like in the draft, we go back because there are probably going to be some free agent running backs still hanging around in May and June that you can add and have them be that complementary piece for your backfield. So I think that's very much a possibility there. Yeah, so I think that's kind of it for the Vikings. I mean, quarterback I think is the biggest thing. Oh, one thing, maybe we'll wait till Laquan's back because I know he texted us that he was in a best ball draft where Justin Jefferson went with the 8th pick in the second round. And that, I think, is heavily, heavily tied to the quarterback situation there. And I think that's a conversation that I think we should definitely have, but we'll wait till LQ is back for that one. The Packers, most of their needs are on defense. A big need is basically for Micah Parsons to get healthy. I think that goes a long, long way. They're $4 million over the cap. Do they need, I hate to say this out loud, do they need to add another wide receiver? I know Romeo Doubs is probably on the move somewhere else. Christian Watson was very good last year. Yeah. Matthew Golden had a big playoff game. But, like, I don't know. Dontavian Wicks doesn't really do much. Bo Melton is a part-time wide receiver, part-time cornerback. He's I don't even call him Temu Travis Hunter because I don't think that's even. He
doesn't get enough love though for what he does.
Well, it's funny because every time they use him as a wide receiver and he drops a pass, I just see Packers fans grumbling about why would you put a corner on the field in this situation.
Corners are receivers who can't catch. I mean,
basically, it's kind of what that is. So, I mean, I know we have spent the last few years bemoaning the fact that the Packers have too many wide receivers and we can't figure it out. But now it feels like, I don't know. I mean, unless we believe in Matthew Golden to take the leap next year, that maybe they need another wide receiver to complement Christian Watson.
I think they're going to be very hopeful that Matthew Golden could take that next step. I also still really like Jaden Reed. I know he's a little limited in how you can use him, but I still think he can be an effective NFL wide receiver, and like him and Watson and Golden on paper with Wicks mixed in there, like that should be 4 good ones. I wouldn't be surprised if they invest in another receiver, but I would be shocked if it's a lofty investment. I don't think their biggest free agent signing or their first or second round pick are probably going to be a receiver, but because also they have 2 of their starting O linemen are free agents this year. So I think if anything on offense, that is your biggest priority, trying to get your line right. They also need a backup quarterback, right? I don't know if you feel comfortable with just Desmond Ridder there. So the offensive side of the things for the Packers, outside of the rebuilding your line, because your left tackle and your right guard potentially leaving is hard to replace. You can't just string that together. But the rest of it, I think, are more like minor moves. They tweak it a little bit here. We bring in this body for depth at receiver, something like that. But for the most part, I think they drafted Matthew Golden a year in advance, being like, you're going to take Romeo Doubs' role in our offense when Romeo Doubs eventually leaves next year as a free agent.
Yeah, because it does seem like they're pretty much set on Doubs not coming back. I think they're going to try and work with what they have and sort of build from there. Look, they spent the first round pick on Matthew Golden, so he's going to get at least another couple years to just figure things out there.
It is so Packers that they finally used a first round pick on a receiver, and then it's one of the worst production that a first round receiver has given in years.
Yeah, I guess, at least you tried. It's sort of one of those. I know people still aren't giving up on Matthew Golden, and that makes sense. It's only been 1 year. I will tell you that at least from a fantasy perspective, I'm out until I see something from him on a consistent basis. So
Christian Watson, though.
Watson, I'm very much in on. He's probably the only Packers receiver I'm really in on this year. But yeah, Golden, I'm sort of out there. So it takes us to the Bears. They are also over the cap, about $9.5 million. I saw, as I was looking around, people saying one of the needs is tight end. I'm going to assume that that's a blocking tight end. You need maybe more of an inline guy who can contribute in the running game, because I think Colston Loveland is it. I think what we saw from him in the back half of the season forecasts him really taking off next year. So I think in terms of a pass catching tight end, I don't think that's it. I think it's more of a blocking tight end.
Still got Cole Kmet too.
They do have Cole Kmet, who I think is just going to be a fly in the ointment. What I'm worried is that Cole Kmet is going to do to Colston Loveland what Jimmy Graham did to Cole Kmet a couple of years ago.
I hope not.
Where every week either on the podcast or on Fantasy Live or in the Sleepers column, I was touting Cole Kmet because all of the metrics, the targets per route run, the snaps, all this stuff was saying Cole Kmet is a worthwhile play. And then Jimmy Graham would catch a touchdown when they got in the red zone. It just got hard to kind of keep banging on that drum for a while. And I don't want this to happen to Colston Loveland. So that's my
The one thing they do, looking at his Spotrac page right now, they do have an out this year if they want to take it. And he is, $11 million, almost $12 million for cap hit for a tight end 2. That feels like he could be a cap casualty.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. Also, Durham Smythe, for what it's worth, is a free agent. So they could sort of revamp the tight end room there in Chicago. Do they need another wide receiver? Keenan Allen. Obviously Keenan Allen's gone. Not Keenan Allen. Who am I? But Luther Burden
DJ
is
Moore?
DJ
Burden.
Well, DJ Moore could be gone. I don't know why I'm stuck in 2024 talking about Keenan Allen.
I mentioned Keenan as a Bear earlier.
You did. I think that's exactly where my brain went at this point. DJ Moore could be gone. The Luther Burden hype train is several miles down the road already. Rome Odunze faded badly in the second half of the season. Do they need to add a piece at wide receiver, or do we believe that they can sort of figure it out with the pieces they have?
I think they're going to need to add a depth receiver, like a wide receiver 3 or something like that, because I loved him as a prospect. I am super bullish on Luther Burden. I think just like Cole Kmet, we saw the youth takeover last year as they gave Burden more. And I know he's one of those players, Marcus, that I think if you just look at the box score, you're doing a disservice. He had a couple of big games where he popped here or there, but watch what he can do. And to me, he just seems like a weapon that Ben Johnson is going to design 120 plays for this year. I just think him and Kmet. I wouldn't be surprised if the offense runs through those two guys next year. There's also Rome Odunze, though. It's feeling more and more likely that DJ Moore is going to be gone because his cap hit isn't crazy. And on top of that, they have a lot of younger pieces here that they are excited for. And let's not forget, right? Like I was the person that was like, this camp rumor doesn't matter, right? Like the whole, they can't figure out how to get DJ Moore the ball thing. I was like, that's a camp thing. But trust me, Ben Johnson's going to know how to get DJ Moore the ball. And then there was a large chunk of the season, Marcus, where they didn't know how to get DJ Moore the ball. He was playing on the backfield. They're throwing him screen passes. So the fact that his cap, it's a little bit higher, but it's not huge anymore. So I think there's a good look. Bills fans are already clamoring like DJ Moore, go get him. I do think DJ Moore is going to be one of the bigger headline names that we see get traded. But I don't think that means they bring in another star wide receiver. I think it means more that they have a lot of confidence in those two young pass catchers that we saw break out in their rookie year.
Yeah, I think that's probably more accurate. I'm trying to think of some guys that would be interesting sort of complementary pieces there. And, Alec Pierce is probably going to be more than what they want or need, I think, in terms of what he's going to come in. I think he's salary-wise. He's going to get paid for sure. I don't know that Rashid Shaheed leaves. I don't. If I'm Seattle, I don't let Rashid Shaheed out of the building. Because he's a big play guy. He also does a lot for you on special teams. I don't know. What is Christian Kirk's future going to be? He's not going to get the big numbers. He's not going to get the big contract that he got, before. I just don't know what his future is at this point.
You talk about the Ravens needing a wide receiver. Debo is one that just screams Ravens to me.
Yeah, Debo could be sort of like the new Anquan Bolden. Christian Kirk is kind of a mystery to me because, he had a couple of he had that one really good year in Jacksonville when we all laughed, like, why are the Jags spending that much money on him? And then he went and balled out. And we're like, all right, well, I'll shut up now. But he hasn't come close to anything like that since. And last year, there were times I literally had to look on the roster and be like, oh, yeah, Christian Kirk is still there in Houston.
But then he killed the Steelers in the playoffs. So it's weird because I still think he's got some game left. I know we're way past the Ravens, but Marquise Brown also feels like another name they could just Miami boys with Lamar obviously already played together. I could see him going back there as well.
That'd be interesting. Yeah. He's another one who just, it never quite panned out the way we hoped it would with his career. But maybe you reunite him back where he started in Baltimore and have him play with Lamar Jackson.
Who do you think wins the Greg Dortch sweepstakes? Laquan?
Yeah. Because he's gonna hype him up wherever he goes. I mean, maybe that's not a terrible thing for the Bears. I don't know. Or does he sort of crowd out Burden, what they want to do with Burden if they bring him in?
I could see Greg Dortch going there because he could play in line, he could play out wide. He's not someone that obviously needs a ton of touches. He's more just like here or there, but when he gets the ball, he tends to do a lot with it. I know Laquan wants him to go somewhere where he could get a much bigger role, but he might be typecasted.
Yeah, I think at this point, he is who he is. What about Jawan Jennings in Chicago?
I like, the only reason I don't like it is because I think it would ding everyone else's fantasy value there.
Yeah.
But I think from a real life standpoint, he fits very well there. He can move her all around the field. He's not someone you have to like throw the ball to 10 times a game.
But every now and then you do throw him the ball 10 times a game because it sort of works out. Yeah. All right. Interesting. There we go. That's the North divisions. Remember the North, AFC and the NFC. Next week, we will continue this with accordingly, the South and West divisions on Tuesday and Thursday of next week as we get you ready for free agency. But in the meantime, that'll do it for this edition of the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. Stay happy, safe, and healthy. Do good and live well. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. We will talk to you on Tuesday.